I'm Gareth Thomas. I work for Lloyds Banking Group. I run the security education and awareness team. There's 5 people plus me. And we run our information and our education as much as we possibly can in a really engaging and entertaining way. We have a brand that we communicate under, which we call Safe and Secure. I'm wearing the hoodie now. I don't know if you can see the logo. I don't always walk around in branded clothing. It happens to be a cold day in the UK right now. But we communicate as safe and secure, and we try and make it as engaging and as enjoyable as possible. I started doing this 5 years ago, and I've done a variety of jobs at Lloyds Banking Group. I've been volunteering and fundraising manager. We've done lots of projects, all sorts of different roles. I'd already had an interest in broadcasting and media. I used to work at one point for the BBC in the UK. And when I saw this job come up for education awareness, I thought, right, that's me. I really like security. I really like getting messages across and talking to people. So I thought, right, that's definitely for me. And since joining, about 4 or 5 years ago, I've just tried to forge my own path, just tried to make it, what I would like to hear, what I would like to see, what I would like to engage with, and just try and make it as enjoyable and as fun as possible. And one of the things that I most commonly talk about actually is commitment over compliance, because it's really easy, isn't it, as security professionals to tell somebody you can't do that, it's blocked, it's restricted, no you can't, it's dangerous. And I know personally, when people tell me I can't do something, I go, what do you mean? I'll find a better way to do it, and I won't tell you next time. And I think that's the wrong attitude completely. I always compare it as well to speed cameras. You drive your car along. I'm going to assume that everybody goes at the speed limit. Let's hypothetically say that somebody was going over the speed limit. They see a speed camera and they slow down and they go through it and then they carry on again. And I think for me, is compliance. And in security, we don't want that really. I mean, yes, we want people to do the right things, but we always want them to do the right things. My daughter often says, "Strict parents breed sneaky kids," which I think is a great quote. What I'm looking for really from our audience is commitment, that they know that security is important and they truly believe that, and that even when nobody's looking, they want to do the right thing. And if I could get people across the whole group to be truly committed to security, then I know that I've succeeded and I've won in my quest.
That's a fascinating background. That's a great approach. And I wondered from the very starting point, what was that problem that Lloyd's was trying to solve in the security awareness category? And what were the different existing tools and options out there? Why were they not able to solve that?
Well, when I joined the role, there was existing mandatory training, and some of it was really good. There was occasional videos, there was snippets of this, that, and the other. There was a little bit of a online presence, not too much. But honestly, I don't think it was engaging enough. I don't think that people looked at it and went, wow, I want to watch this, I want to see that, I want to do that. They had to do it. And the hiring manager said, I'm really looking for something different. And I was like, well, thank goodness, because I don't want to do more of the same. And so we started to think, well, how do we make this as fun as possible? And that's where we've adopted the approach really of making it more like social media. It's a really crowded marketplace when it comes to communications. In a big corporate like Lloyds Banking Group, it's 58,000 people work for us. There's countless different departments all talking about all different things. They're all important. So how do you differentiate yourself? How do you make your message be heard? And it's not as simple as just going to, the corporate head office and saying, hey guys, will you just talk about security for me? They kind of go, well, I've got a lot of other stuff that I want to talk about. So really we have to forge our own path and make our content more interesting than everybody else's and differentiate it. And you think, well, how do I do that? What are people looking at in their own time? And it's social media. They're looking at their phones, they're absorbing content in lots of different ways. And there's so many very clever people working in social who have cottoned on some really great psychological reasons for doing things. And really we've gone, well, how can we be inspired by that within the constraints of a corporate? And really we've tried to be as different as possible. We stopped asking for permission to do things and we just went ahead and did them and kind of took a big deep breath and thought, oh, I'll wait to be told off. But we never were. And I hope we never will be. But the problem was grabbing people's attention and getting their commitment. And I think that's why we've forged on this path of making things feel a lot more like a social network than a than a corporate communications or a security education and awareness people.
Just when you start off talking about going for commitment over compliance, and that's such a critical starting point too, is realizing that you need to actually engage with people, and you need their engagement, you need their participation for this to have an actual effect, right? Explain a little bit, not a little bit, explain a bit about how do you actually turn security awareness into a social network experience?
Well, I guess the heart of our online presence is from our SharePoint site, but our SharePoint site doesn't look like a SharePoint site. So we've carefully crafted all of our site to be as interactive, engaging, and modern as it possibly can be. So certainly for some of those pages, we've had to write by hand in JavaScript, a range of different things to make them look super engaging. But we kind of went back to our safe and secure. And safe and secure is a communications brand that's quite deliberately not organizational. So our organizational brand, like many companies, is the Chief Security Office. And they are the organization, and they have to be serious. They've got a really serious job to do. And they're facing into business stakeholders, and they're announcing important things. So we think that actually communicating as Chief Security Office has a different feel to the kind of persuasive social element that we're trying to achieve. So we start by saying we're safe and secure. We've got our own color palette. It's trying to be what it says on the tin. It's trying to get that feeling that I want to be safe and secure. Nobody wants to be chief security office, but they do want to be all safe and secure. And we're pulling on the motivations that people naturally have in their lives. So they want to keep their elderly parents safe. They want to keep their children safe. They want to avoid being scammed. They want useful information that they can use in their own life. And if that information then is really useful in corporate life, then great. But they're not 9-to-5 humans. They are all-day human beings that have lives outside of work. So we play on our website. We play on the whole ampersand thing. So the ampersand represents really a partnership between us as the team talking about security and the colleague who has to live those behaviors every day. So we'll have sections like saving and sending and those kind of things, and everything's got an ampersand in it to try and remind people of the brand and what we're trying to say. But then that's where we start to get as heavy into the social side as we possibly can. So, for example, we use Yammer, or as it's called now, Viva Engage, a very catchy rename of Microsoft product. And we use that extensively to create a stream of content that's constantly being updated so that people have new content to constantly see and new messages to see. So we might have the latest scams, which we keep up to date. It might be a campaign that we've got related to something that's happening in the world. So in the UK, there's a really popular baking program. I don't know if people around the world get that. I'm sure people do, but we will have our own baking competition if that's what we want. The Football World Cup and the Women's and the Men's Football World Cup, we tapped into that as well. So we created a campaign around that where we had each team had its own page. That page carried a story about a cyber attack in that country. You could collect the stickers off each page and put them in your virtual sticker book. So every individual, when they went to the site, there was a cookie that personalized their sticker book. And as they opened their sticker book digitally, it all opened up like beautiful pages and there was empty spaces. And of course, the natural psychology for people is to want to fill in those spaces with stickers.
Ah, that's brilliant.
So they were going backwards and forwards between the sticker book and going, oh, I haven't got Finland. Right, quick, go and read the article about Finland. And then, they've got a complete sticker book. And at the end of that, if they'd completed the sticker book, they got a prize and those kind of things. So those kind of little apps and things are really appealing. So we're constantly pushing content to people. Depending on the problem and what we're trying to solve, we'll think, oh, how do we do this differently? So one of the things that we face into is people trying to scam through WhatsApp. Now, WhatsApp is not one of our strategic communications tools, and we ask colleagues, that's not a work tool. Of course, if you want to speak to your friends on it, great, that's no problem, but not for work. But of course, people were getting messages coming in saying, oh, it's your boss's boss here. I need you to buy me some gift cards or something. And we wanted people to experience what that was like in a safe environment. So as we're writing an article about WhatsApp and communications and that kind of thing, we actually created a simulator. So it took the information about the colleague that was looking at that page. It found out through our Active Directory what their name was, what their boss's name was, and what their boss's boss's name was. And we crafted it so that it looked familiar as WhatsApp. It showed their boss's boss contacting them, and it quoted their boss's name, saying, "Oh, so and so's asked me to get in touch, that you'd help me. I'm away at the moment. I need you to get me some vouchers and send me that spreadsheet." It was really interesting because we had people phone us up and go, oh, "How? What? You've used my name and my boss's name on this page, and I don't want everyone seeing that." And we was like, "No, it's personalized to you. It's just you that's seeing it." Like, well, I don't understand. That kind of delight is what you find on social media. It's that surprise. It's that kind of addictive element to it that we're trying to get across to people. We also, there's a very popular social media network. You may have heard of it. It's called TikTok. It's very popular with the children. My daughters are never off it. I don't personally have it, but it's really popular. YouTube Shorts, same deal, right? So these kind of reels, these short videos, 15 seconds. And, I have to admit that I've been on YouTube Shorts. I am finding myself looking through these videos, and then an hour's gone by and I kind of emerge from this strange coma that I've been in, thinking, what have I been doing? Where have I been going? We're like, that looks good, right? We've got to do that. Now, we can't send colleagues off to TikTok. Sites like that quite legitimately are not accessible through the group. So we thought, what are we going to do? So we created our own. So we've got Microsoft tools, but there's no TikTok version. The Microsoft don't supply a TikTok style player. So we built our own. I've got a very clever guy who works for me who created effectively a reel page for video reels. And the rest of the team all kind of pitched in and said, right, we can make reels. Yeah, we can do that. We all learned to do it. We all made them. We've made over 100 now. We got other colleagues and said, do you want to make a reel? And they're like, yeah, I'll do that. And they're sending us stuff in, some really clever stuff too. And now when a colleague goes to that page, they get a reel. And then when that's finished, 15, 20 seconds, all about security, it automatically scrolls to the next one and plays you the next video and the next and the next and the next. And it just goes on and on. And they're all different. They're all got their own little quirks and stuff. Yeah, we've had colleagues say, I watched one 15-second video and then half an hour later I realized I was late for a meeting. We're like, yes.
That's amazing.
Yes, we've done it. We've hooked you onto security training and you didn't even realize that you were doing it. So that's the joy and the brilliance of social media, I guess, and why we think that is the way to go forward.
Is this something that employees are also putting in their own content?
Yeah,
or is this something that?
Yeah.
Okay.
They can.
All right.
So the joy of what we've created is that we can get one 15-second video that's relevant to a particular subject. So let's say we wanted to try and get across that we wanted people to update their phones as soon as the update becomes available. That's a really good behavior, but not everybody does that. So we might create a short that is a bit of fun. I remember there's one in particular. We've got lots on each subject, by the way, but one in particular has got this asteroid coming down and it sets fire to all the icons and they all just burn to ash. And it goes, well, what's the worst that can happen? Oh, oh dear, I didn't update in time. So we can put that as an iframe in an article, and we've kind of syndicated ourselves across the group. So we've made arrangements with other areas so that if you go to a particular part of the organization and you go to their page, we've negotiated that they can have some of our content if they give us space on their page. It's a bit like a Google ad, if you will. So they see that and they click on it and it takes them into the player. And of course they see that video and then they see millions of them. So we've got them stuck in this loop of watching shorts. And that works really well.
And talk about engagement. I mean, typically engagement is that you're able to see on your screen and you can show this to your CISO or whoever that we have engagement based upon an open rate on an email. But if people are engaging by creating content, you don't hear that very often.
No, we do have an email, right? So we every month we'll send out a newsletter, the Safe and Secure newsletter. And it is really popular. But again, we've tried to differentiate it as much as possible, thinking, well, how are the most successful companies in the world sending out information like this? I know there's newsletters that I get from companies like supermarkets and things like that, and you look at the products and it's like, oh, I could buy that, and I'm gonna name a company. Aldi do this very well. I don't know if you're as susceptible as I am to the middle aisle bargain, but when you get to a certain age, you just can't help but go around and buy a welder from Aldi when you thought you were buying a tin of beans or something. But they do a brilliant newsletter, and it's so pictorial and it looks fun, and the products are well presented, and it's easy to navigate. And we try to be the same. We pick out the very best of our content from that month and any highlights coming up, and we'll highlight those on the newsletter and bring that through. We get a cracking click-through rate, really, really good. It's a little bit hard to measure sometimes because the tools that we've got are not designed for this kind of stuff. They're designed for office collaboration. So when you try to use them in a slightly offbeat way, like putting a shorts platform on there, is sometimes a bit hard to measure. But we do get a really good click-through rate, and people do enjoy that kind of stuff.
Is that one of the main measurements that you use as far as, I don't know if you have to give KPIs to your security function?
I mean, they're very interested, right? So you don't employ 6 people and then go, well, doesn't matter what you're achieving. They are very keen to know, and I feel a duty as well as the lead of the team that we can supply evidence that we're doing useful stuff. Now, how do you link behavior to an article or to an individual piece of education, or even a whole stream of education? It's really hard to do. There's things that we know. So we know that people come to our content. We get, I can't remember how many exactly, but in the millions of views or millions of impressions that we've had, which is amazing. It makes some of our communication professionals cry. They see the amount of footfall that we get through our site. And we create tools like, for example, like in many organizations, we need to classify all of our data. So when you create an email, it will say, is this public, limited, what is it? And that, sometimes people don't immediately know how to do that. So we created a tool that does that. So it takes you through step by step. Is it this? Does it talk about that? Should I, who are you sending it to? That kind of thing. It's like a step-by-step helper. And it's tools like that get tens of thousands of views, because it's helping them. It's a useful thing to do. So we measure those kind of things. We've got all the normal analytics of unique visitors, times of day, all that kind of stuff, right? All that you'd expect to do. And obviously, we're monitoring really closely all of the things that we could measure within any security organization. We have a phishing simulation program, like many organizations do. So we're looking really carefully about that, and everything from how many people lost their pass to you name it. So we try as much as we can to keep a close eye on that. And if we see any of those going the wrong way, we'll create a campaign immediately to try and combat that particular risk that's increasing. But it's hard, isn't it? I had a challenge from my boss recently. He said, how do I know that people are doing things differently because of what you're doing? You do a presentation, everyone likes it, and everyone comes and looks at your new reels or whatever. But are they making a difference? So what we do, we ask people at the end of a presentation or on the bottom of a page, if you've done something different as a result of what we said today, just put a sentence in the comments or put a sentence in the chat or whatever. And we ran a competition actually as well to get people to do that. It's one of our campaigns for Cybersecurity Month. And it's amazing the number of people they're saying, yeah, I did change my Facebook to friends only. I did tell my mother about so-and-so, or I have updated my phone now. And you can see that people are doing things. And that ultimately is what we're about, isn't it? It's changing behavior and getting people to do things in a safe way.
Yeah. Measuring culture and cultural transformation that's not a trivial thing to do. It's really quite complex. And I'm sure that there's also part of it is just that qualitative piece to it as well, where are people talking about it around the proverbial water cooler? Or all of a sudden people actually putting it on their Yammer or their Slack boards, like, oh, I just saw this really great video, or oh, I just had this phishing thing and it really almost nailed me. So I think there's kind of a sense of that. But for sure, you work at Lloyds Bank. It's one of the most powerful financial institutions that the world's ever seen. And there's probably also going to be a quantitative component to that too. So it's impressive to be able to mix that sense of playfulness and fun, and I would say entertainment, but just engagement through it being playful and fun, with like a hard behavior change, with like an actual hard result.
Yeah, I mean, what we do is very serious. So there's no doubt about it. We take our job very seriously, but it doesn't mean that you've got to look at how am I going to achieve what I want to achieve. We all start every brief from every department by saying, what is it you want them to do differently? Because nobody can know everything. It's not a case of just cramming facts in somebody's head. They ultimately is change that we're after. Talking about entertainment, actually, it was very interesting because we obviously have mandatory training. Every organization has that mandatory training. Every year, you have to do it. And when we looked at ours, we went, well, we've got 3 modules. They're all in December. and they all talk about things, and they're all organized in a way that makes sense to a security professional, but not to an ordinary colleague. And
Right.
so we really did change it up. So we first of all sat down and went, well, first of all, they shouldn't all be in December. They should be every quarter. There should be something about security, because I can't remember something in December all the way back through to the next October. It's just gone. So having constant refresh, and then having mandatory training that had like a story that ran through it, a story arc that was a kind of episodic. So we would start the story in the first quarter, and then it would be the same environment and the same characters. It wouldn't be the same thing, obviously, but you would recognize things. And that for us was about maintaining retention, because if you go, oh yeah, I remember this from last time because that happened. And we always have a little recap at the start of each episode. But we said we want to make it as exciting as watching Netflix. We want to create something that if somebody had the choice, they would switch it on, or look at it. And that's, we work really closely with an external video agency. We co-wrote with them, and they were saying, we're not used to this. We're not used to clients kind of sending the script back with half of it changed. We're like, well, we're not an ordinary client, right? We can't bring in 15 actors and hire a studio and do that stuff. We haven't got those resources. You have, but what we do have is we understand our colleagues and we know what we're looking for, and something really exciting and different. And so we released a series of training called Cyber City, which was all based around this imaginary kind of near future type environment. And that went down really well. People were quite taken aback by it. We refreshed it a couple of years later and made it more as a kind of a social experiment type thing, where we had created a world that was synthesized, but we could see the scientists in the kind of the gods in the cloud kind of thing. The scientists were changing parameters and making things happen in the simulation, and then you would zoom into the simulation and see those things happen and the effects of them, but all in a kind of very well acted and very well done environment. People were quite taken aback, to be honest. I was talking to somebody this morning, they were like, you made that? Oh my God, I really love that. But not everybody loves everything. There's still people in the organization that go, oh God, can't you just tell me quickly? I'll just put it on a piece of paper and I'll read it. So you can't win them all, but at least they have a view about it. That's the thing. Could you imagine if you created training and people went, oh, I don't remember that? That for me would be, crying time. If they say, I hated that, then okay, well, at least you've got an opinion on it.
There's a lot of tiers out there then. There's a lot of people who create training content and nobody actually engages with it. And that it really speaks highly of the whole organization. The fact that there's that kind of commitment to time and resources to basically create a media company within Lloyd's that's devoted to security awareness media. Yeah. And the fact that you were hired to head this too is a really innovative, out of the box kind of approach to it, starting from the top. And I wonder if you said there's a couple things I wanted to kind of go back over that you mentioned earlier that I wanted to unpack a little bit, and that's leadership buy-in to get this thing going, program rollout, and like the composition of your team. But starting with like leadership buy-in, I think that's incredible that you just sort of stopped asking for permission and did something this kind of bold. You must have had I'm assuming you had some sense that you had for lack of a better word, a cool leadership who would be on board with this. How do you walk me through that? Because that's quite a first step.
Yeah, and it's hard to look back and think, my God, how did we get to this place? Because it does seem remarkable even to me sitting here now, and I've lived through it. I think there was a really strong appetite when they advertised the role. The last person left and done a good job. So don't get me wrong, I'm not kind of slagging off the last guy kind of thing. But there was a definite appetite to do something a lot different. And I could see from, having been a colleague in the company and watching that training, that I wanted to really amp it up and make it more exciting and more interesting. You get the newsletter each month and you think, oh my, this is not where I would want it to be. I'd want this to be the best email that anyone ever gets for the month. So when I came on board, there was definitely an appetite to let's do something differently. But I could also see, and the frustration in my team was that, there was a guy that I inherited in my team. He got a degree in filmmaking, but had been waiting 6 months to try and buy a camera. I was like, wow, what's the hold up? And he said, well, I put in a business case and it's been discussed a few times, but then it was knocked off the agenda and then this, that, and the other. And I was like, just go and buy one. because what's the point in having a guy with a degree in filmmaking and no camera? It just seems
Wow.
insane to me. So, the amount of money that we were talking about was not so significant that it wouldn't pay itself back instantly. So I kind of think, do I put together a really careful, long and exciting business case and then discuss it at a committee? Well, no, because it's, we're not talking about £1 million investment here. We're talking about some £100 worth of camera, but the output from that I knew would pay back instantly. When it came to things like the newsletter, so we produced our first newsletter, and I thought, am I going to fall into this trap where I take it to somebody and ask for their approval? Well, the person I worked for at the time was absolutely brilliant at what they did, but they weren't a graphic designer, and they weren't a copywriter either. And I kind of, again, took a deep breath and thought, I'm not going to go and get this approved. I'm going to put it out. And if they don't like it, I'm going to get in
brave
trouble.
Man. You are a brave
sometimes
man.
you have to. One of our values is bold. Be bold. And I thought, right, I'm gonna do that. And they were like, oh, I see the newsletter's changed. And I said, yes, it has, yes. Very nice. Thank you very much. I don't remember seeing it. No, you didn't. And she was like, okay. You have to build up, right? So we didn't immediately start at the pace that we are now, and you have to build up and prove yourself, I guess. And it was only by creating really good assets and people going, wow, this is really good, that you kind of build the faith and belief from your stakeholders in what you do. And now we have lots of equipment that allows us to move quickly and create great content. We have a team that are fantastic and have got really good qualifications and experience. We put ourselves, on bespoke training. We'll find somebody who's an expert. We'll drag a cameraman or a camera person and get them. How do you do this, and what does that do, and how do you work this, and where would you put the lighting, and do that kind of stuff. And we just build those skills in. So it's been a journey, but you have to build it up. But at the same time, you have to be bold, because if you just keep repeating the same pattern of, please may I do this, and do you like this, and if you ask somebody, what do you think of this, they're almost inevitably going to say, well, they feel obliged to give you some feedback, and then you've got to change it and then take it back for reapproval. And I don't want to be in that cycle. It's just not where I want to be at all.
Yeah, you certainly understand quality, having been at the BBC in your past. You know what a quality communication looks like, as opposed to the same old, which could at this point just be generated by AI practically. So
yeah, you have to be ambitious. Yeah, I mean, but you have to have high standards. And one of our USPs, we truly live by, is that high production value is everything. If you send something out by email and it doesn't look like it came from the top design agency, then you've failed. And it has to look great, because anyone can make a second-rate newsletter. If we make videos, we really want them to be great, and so on and so forth. It's got to be good. And we have a rule within the team that we have to be honest with each other, and we have to be not necessarily brutal, but we must feel that we can give each other feedback. And if it isn't right, we have to say. And sometimes the team has said to me, sorry, that was rubbish. And I go, yeah, actually, you know what? In my heart of heart, it wasn't good enough, and we do another take. Yeah, it's a great environment to work in.
Yeah, you got to kill your darlings sometimes.
Exactly. You were asking me about the team. Again, I inherited a very good team, but not necessarily very good at communications. They all had a lot of skill and a lot of experience, but not necessarily in where we needed to be. We had our filmmaker, and he's still with us, and we've developed his skills and given him more equipment, and he's now working on a super duper Mac to be as creative as he can be. And I keep niggling him and pushing him and saying, I saw this thing on YouTube the other night. It must be his worst nightmare to go, oh no, he's been watching YouTube again. He wants me to do this fancy editing thing again. I also have a communications manager, which is something we didn't have when we started. We were creating great content, and we were building up this portfolio of content. But we're like, is anybody watching it? And it's a kind of iterative process where you can't ask people to watch rubbish, and if it's not there, they can't see it. So we had to build it, but then make sure that there was an audience out there for it. So she's been working really hard to become friends with every communications manager across the entire group. And there's a lot of people, right? Every department, anyone that publishes something or has a newsletter or a website, she'll be there talking to them saying, we've got this amazing thing coming out and we could help you with this, and would you like a presentation? And she's trawling through the statistics and saying, oh, I noticed your area weren't very good at this, we could help with that. And now we have a bit of a backlog of people coming to us saying, well, we'd quite like you to make a video for us. We're like, well, we can do that. It's almost like we've created this slight internal agency of creativity. And if it's got a security message in it, then we'll try and do it. And so we've been working with developers on messages around software development or secure software development, which is so important. And occasionally we get dragged in to make videos with the boss, which is also great.
Oh, is that right?
Okay. Oh yeah, sure, yeah. But that's great, you see, because we can demonstrate how professional we are. We can give the boss something really that they want, and we can do it very quickly and dynamically, and save them an absolute ton of money doing it too. So, yeah. So who else have we got? Got a really good web application developer who actually came to me as a communications manager, but has learned JavaScript from scratch. Has got an incredible imagination, very clever graphic designer too, and helps us with all of our graphics and all of our amazing stuff on our webpage. And we've got other people across the team who specialize in all sorts of different things: accessibility, communications, copywriting. So we've got a broadly multi-skilled team, and I try really hard to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to try everything. So of course, my video content creator is really good at doing video editing, so pretty much will do anything really complicated. But that doesn't mean that other people can't make videos. And when we get a new project in, we tend to kind of throw it in the ring and say, who wants to have a go at this? And people go, oh, that looks amazing, So we get the most motivated person of the team doing it, and so you get the best product out at the end. And of course, they might say, well, actually, I can't do that bit. Would you help me with that? And everyone, yeah, we can do that. So we try and be really super quick and agile, but having the most motivated person in the team looking at a project is great.
Did you, to get that kind of buy-in on a 6-person team, which is impressive? Of course, you have a very large company you're working at, you're trying to reach everybody with. Did you show them some results at the beginning with just like 1 or 2 of you, or did you inherit like a large team that was told to go out there and figure something out with all this talent now? Or did you build the talent after you kind of proved something to someone?
It's a mix, right? So it's constant iteration. We started with a very slightly smaller team, and there was an open headcount which we used to take on our communications manager. And there's always a little bit of mixing around and people joining and leaving. I think we've had a few changes in the team over the 5 years. But no, I mean, I guess the headcount was pretty much there, and if anything, we've got more work than we can do, and people want us to do stuff for them, which is great. We'll probably settle where we are for now until somebody comes along and says, will you do this other thing for us as well?
Right. It's one of those common refrains that I've heard from other security awareness directors and functions, and yours is really quite unique. The fact that you do have effectively a media company within a company that's doing what you guys are doing with so much creative license and with such an innovative approach. But oftentimes it's been with security awareness directors, you have 1 or 2 headcount, you have 1 or 2 tools you can buy, and then you have to prove that this is having an effect in this way and that way and that way. But it sounds like the quality of the actual content was in itself impressive. Was that something that you expected, that you would be able to produce great quality content and that would align with like the corporate value and expectation for your function?
So it's been a learning process. When you look back at some of the really early stuff we did, I kind of like, oh no, this is terrible. And so it's taken time to build those skills and build that reputation and build those assets. I think what really sells it is other people around the company. When our leaders go to places, and they say, oh, I'm from security, and they go, oh, from Safe and Secure. And they tell them, oh, I love that video, and oh, it was really great fun. And they see the engagement, and people are actually excited about security. And that helps them do their job. They've got important, serious jobs to do. But if people welcome them with open arms and say, oh, yeah, okay, well, you guys all seem really good and okay, let's work together, that makes their role so much easier. So they get the benefit of what we do, and therefore, I guess they have more impetus to help us do more of it.
One of the interesting things that you brought up, talking about the people you talk to and how you can help them, and you mentioned at one point going to a department and saying, it looks like some of your people are doing this in a way that could be done better. We can help. Let's work together on this. That sounds a lot like what we would probably call mapping human risk. You're seeing kind of the human cyber risk across the organization. And I think that's an incredibly important thing to be able to do, is target your content to the right people at the right time in the right way. Does that sound familiar to what you're doing?
Yeah, one of our mantras is right message, right place, right time. Because it's no good me telling you about protecting your home router at 9 o'clock in the morning when you're in the office, right? Because you'll forget all of what I've told you. And then when you go home, you've got to then dig out that bit of information and use it. And equally, if we want somebody to take off their ID card when they leave the office, there's no point telling them at 10 o'clock in the morning, because it'll be hours before they actually go and do it. So we need to try and get the right message in the right place at the right time. And we've worked really hard with people from all over our group to make sure that our messages are in those places. So, for example, if you order a laptop from our internal IT channel, it'll come with information. Which, by the way, our CISO had ordered a laptop on his first day, and it came with information about security, which he told me he was delighted about. And that, that's an example of, I guess, selling it to the leadership. But it's useful, even if you order a bag or something like that, or if you come back from maternity leave, the HR system will tell you all the very important things you need to do, but it also will mention security. And we've worked really hard to get those messages into those channels at the right moment, and that's critical for us. Training in itself is just a primer. I can tell you about phishing, but you won't need that until you see a phishing email. And it's how do we activate that knowledge, and that's really, really hard. But a great example, we were working with a department for the last couple of weeks. They said that security just didn't seem to figure on their employees' mind. They wanted to up that and reduce some figures that were going not quite the right direction. And so we arranged a complete cyber-focused day for them. Now, these are guys that were answering phones all day. They had quite a repetitive type environment, which is, they do a really important job answering phones to customers. There's no doubt about it, but it's hard work. And so we were able to go and create an entire day for them where they could come and see some presentations. I did a lock picking workshop. That blew their mind. They were like, lock picking? We spent £100 on plastic locks from like a lock training company, some lock picks. It's something that I've always been kind of vaguely interested in and learned to do. We put up some prizes. We've got some merch, some I haven't got one here actually, but a really nice travel cup with our Safe and Secure logo on it. Let's learn to pick locks together. And you kind of think, why in the name of God would anyone need to know that? Surely that's making your security posture worse, if anything, than better. But it's people thinking about security, and if they're thinking about security, then you're winning, because I can, while they're picking a lock, they're going, how is this even possible? And I can say, well, look, poor manufacturing. It's somebody cut a corner in the development of this lock, or it's things that you don't realize. I've got a lock that I say, can you open that? And they're like, don't know. And they spent ages turning the dial backwards and forwards, and you take it off them and you just pull it open. You say, look, this is the illusion of security. And then lots of people then thinking about security and what does this mean and how does that relate to me? And it just gets them excited about security. So that can be really valuable. So there's an example, I guess, of working with a department that have looked on the data, it wasn't quite right, and we've gone in there and blasted it, and they're all really motivated now, and it gave them time away from the phones, and they're all talking about it, and all going away and buying their own lockpicks and stuff.
Yeah, that's an amazing way to get the message, just to get that initial first thought in someone's head about security in a way that they can actually relate to. Because cybersecurity, it's so scary, it's complex, it's technical for most people. It's something they don't even want to really think about. But that lock is just a perfect metaphor and a lesson for it too, is that you can just pull it apart. One email.
It's literally the icon, isn't it? If you think security, think of an icon for security as a padlock. And then if you take a padlock and go, well, actually, there's 12 different ways I can get into this without the key, people start to go, ooh, I get it now. But they just, to get people excited about security is the start, isn't it? And if they go home and tell people at home, oh, you never guess what I've been doing today. I did this thing and they told me about that, and they showed me a flipper zero and showed me how you can read a card on it. And, they get excited and believe it or not, actually, one of the things that we do add a lot of value to from our Chief Security Office point of view is a talent stream, because people are now seeing our content and thinking, oh, security looks a lot of fun to me. I've had a number of people say, geez, I was interviewing somebody. They said, what qualifications have you got for this job? And they were like, well, I love safe and secure. And why did you apply? Well, it just looked really exciting on safe and secure. And they're like, oh, okay, all right, fair enough, thanks. But it is important, getting the PR right for your chief security office across the group. If they think that you're good people and fun, they're much more likely to do the right thing and come and work for you as well.
Well, that's a great indicator that you're doing the right thing. If people think that safe and secure is so cool, they actually want to work there. That's
Yeah.
definitely a good win for you. This is just sort of a question that just popped in my head. Are you going to productize this?
Ultimately, we're a financial services group, and our purpose is it's stated quite clearly, right? We're to help Britain prosper. So that's what we're all about, is the financial services in the UK. Do I think we'd ever productize it? I'm not sure, to be honest. A lot of what we talk about is internal stuff. We'll provide a lot of internal information. We'll try and relate it back to internal processes. There is a strong demand. We do get asked a lot. And I do work with our supplier education people. If you supply the group, you're one of our approved suppliers, we provide a lot of support from a cyber point of view. And I've done a lot of stuff with our supplier base. I do a monthly web stream similar to this. We bring in guests from all sorts of backgrounds. We had a prison governor come in last month, and I interviewed him about security in prisons. We didn't give away too many secrets, obviously, but it was really interesting. There's a lot of call for those kind of things to go public. I don't know. Maybe we will one day.
Yeah,
Maybe that's the dream.
I think that this final question would lend itself to that, which is, if someone else wanted to take this social network approach to security awareness, what would be the core advice you would give to that person, to that leadership?
I think you've got to do it right. Don't try and do a slightly rubbish corporate version of it. You've got to go for it and do it properly, because people will see through that. And that's why, we try to be as different as we can, and we hold production value as one of the highest things. You're going to need some skills. Without a web content developer, without a video content creator, without a great communications manager, then you're going to be creating content that nobody sees, or not really creating great content at all. And you can't differentiate yourself by using SharePoint widgets and hoping for the best. So you need to put the effort into doing it properly if you're going to do it. We're used to outsource, and there's nothing wrong with outsourcing, but there's a limitation to how quickly you can move and how much it's going to cost you, and how tailored it can be. And so I think, for us, insourcing was the right option given the size of our company. That's not the right thing for everybody, of course, and there's nothing wrong with going and getting a massive library of security training if you're only a small company. That's probably better than doing nothing at all. But if you're a big company and you think, actually, I really do want to engage people, then you need to invest in the skills to make that happen. You need to have super creative people that have got also the license to go and do the things that they think creatively are the right ones. Don't scrutinize them with endless KPIs and justifications and business cases, because you'll just squash the life out of it. And don't be afraid to try things differently. What's the worst thing that can happen? If you put out a message that's a bit too playful and you need to kind of go, well, maybe we'll delete that, then what's the worst that can happen? It's an internal communications message. It's not like you've written out to your customer base and made a mistake. So be daring, try different things, see what happens, and maybe it'll be a massive success. Who knows?
Be daring. I love it. Really great conversation, Gareth. I really, really appreciate your time here. I think that you really told a story here of security awareness, of the journey that is actually possible when you take an approach that's predicated on rewarding your people for engaging, and with treating people like people and meeting them where they are, and then bringing them along from there.
It's not an easy thing. No, I don't want to get across to anybody that somehow overnight it's all easy and done. And we've got so far to go. Still, it breaks my heart. You won't believe how many videos I've been in. I've been on posters where I walked around our local city with a massive ID card around my neck, and they're still all over the place now. So my face is, pretty well known within the group, and I've got a pretty high profile, but still I meet people and they go, no, never heard of Safe and Secure. What are you? What's that? And it breaks my heart. It literally just, it's just, But you just got to smile and say, well, actually, if you haven't heard of us, then you'll be delighted. We've got so much work to do still, but we just keep banging along because it's so important.
What's interesting, because similarly to what we do too, we take a very positive approach to this and rewarding to kind of help people raise their profile, to make people find that cybersecurity is cool. They're approachable. You go from being kind of like the person who's the hall monitor to the popular kid in class. And I wonder if that's something that you've talked about, not just with your own team in Safe and Secure, but beyond. And I'm not sure what your reporting structure is, but if you're talking to like the CISO or the person below that, but is that something that has been kind of mentioned, is that you've elevated the whole profile of cybersecurity with an enjoyable, engaging experience around awareness?
Definitely. I mean, it is really easy to see security as the ministry of no, and people don't always see the risk on a day-to-day basis. They don't see the companies around them going down, and they kind of think it's all hypothetical because it's never happened. So why would it happen? And of course, people install burglar alarms, don't they, the day after the burglary? It never happens to you until it does happen to you. You mentioned about the positivity. One thing that we did actually recently, we used to run, well, we still do run phishing simulations, about 2 a year, probably, colleagues get. And we've changed the dial on that a lot. And I know that you've spoken about phishing simulations before on this show. But one of the most powerful things we did actually was send out a Goldfish Award. And it was to everybody that had spotted and reported. They got an email that had a nice graphics, lovely production, but it just said, you're awesome. We really appreciate you, and you spotted it, you reported it, and that's brilliant. And then if you spotted it and didn't click on it, but you didn't report it, it said you're still awesome, but you could be even more awesomer. I don't think I didn't use those exact words, but that's actually, to be fair, that's the kind of language we might use. But nonetheless, we said, brilliant, but don't forget next time to do this. The feedback we got on that was incredible. People were like, I so appreciate it. It crashed our mailbox of people replying to us saying, thanks, you're saying thank you, because it had felt like for a long time security was that no, and they looked sternly at their shoes and then disappeared off again once they'd told you off. But to be rewarded and thanked for something, as perceived as being unimportant, like reporting a phishing email, which actually is one of the most important things people can do. They were really excited about it. And I kid you not, we had one person contact us saying, actually, life's been a bit rubbish for me, and I've been really down, and this just lifted me this morning.
That's amazing.
I know, and it brought a tear to my eye reading this email, because
amazing.
I couldn't believe it myself. Yeah, saying thank you is so important, isn't it?
It is. And it's amazing what can happen when you replace the stick with a carrot at scale. It's amazing what can happen when you stop slapping people's wrists and start giving them high fives. Obviously, Hoxhunt is predicated around phishing training, but the approach is really similar philosophically to what you've been talking about. It's rewarding people, it's making it engaging and fun, and making people feel a real sense of shared responsibility, as opposed to being afraid of being put in the stockade, being put into solitary confinement for doing any kind of a problem. Yeah. So that's a great story to finish there. Well, hey, thank you for joining us, and we will definitely be in touch.
Yeah, well, we're all trying to do the same thing, which is to keep everybody safe and keep the criminals at bay, really. So it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and great fun too.